Hey everyone, welcome back. We're going to be diving into some pretty cool new research today,
Oh, yeah.
all about microplastic pollution. Specifically, we're looking at how it's accumulating in freshwater systems.
Right.
And we've got this brand new study from Penn State, just published in Science of the Total Environment.
That's right. And
Pretty excited to break this down.
yeah. It's a really timely topic for sure.
Yeah.
And I think what makes this study particularly interesting is the approach they took.
Oh,
They analyzed sediment cores from 4 different watersheds in Pennsylvania.
okay.
And these cores are like time capsules, right? They capture layers of sediment deposited over decades.
Wow.
They actually go back to before the 1950s.
Oh, wow. So we're not just talking about like a snapshot in time.
No.
We're getting a long-term view of how this has been building up.
Yeah, a much longer period than most studies.
Right.
And what they found is really pretty revealing. Since the 1950s, the levels of microplastics in these sediment cores have been steadily climbing.
Which I guess isn't all that surprising.
Yeah.
Given our plastic use.
Right.
It seems like a pretty direct reflection
Yeah.
of our growing plastic habit showing up in these ecosystems.
Yeah, it paints a pretty clear picture of that connection.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Between 2010 and 2020, they actually saw a decline.
We did decline.
A decline
What?
in the rate of microplastic accumulation.
Huh. That seems counterintuitive,
Right.
given what we hear about
Yeah.
it getting worse.
It was unexpected.
Yeah.
So the researchers speculate that this dip could be related to increased recycling efforts during that time.
Oh, okay.
If you look at EPA data on plastic recycling rates, there was a pretty significant increase between 1980 and 2010.
So maybe, just maybe,
Yeah.
those efforts are starting to make a dent,
Yeah.
at least in some areas.
Yeah.
It raises the question, is this a hopeful sign or just like a temporary blip?
We need more research to see if that trend continues.
For sure.
Now, another finding that surprised me was the lack of a clear correlation between population density,
Oh, interesting.
or land use, and microplastic levels.
Okay.
We tend to think that more people equals more pollution, but it seems more complicated than that.
That is a really interesting point.
Yeah.
What do you think could be driving those variations then?
Well, it could be a whole host of factors, right?
Yeah.
The types of plastics being used in different areas,
Okay.
the waste management practices in place, even the specific characteristics of each watershed,
Oh, wow.
like the flow rate or the types of vegetation.
Mm-hmm.
It suggests we need to dig deeper and consider a wider range of variables when we're trying to understand how microplastics are moving through these systems.
So it really challenges our assumptions
Yeah.
and underscores how complex this issue really is.
It does.
So we've got microplastics on the rise, then a bit of a dip, and now this puzzle about population density.
Right.
What else did this study uncover?
Well, this next part ties into something you've probably heard about,
Okay.
the missing plastics paradox.
Okay.
We know that huge amounts of plastic are entering the ocean every year,
Right.
but when scientists go out to measure it, they're finding far less than they expect.
Like it's vanishing.
Yeah, like a massed amount of plastic is simply vanishing.
That absolute disettling.
Yeah.
Where's it all going?
This study offers a clue. It suggests that estuaries, especially tidal marshes,
Okay.
might be acting like giant filters, trapping a significant portion of those plastics before they reach the open ocean.
So these marshes are almost like a buffer zone,
Yeah.
preventing some of that plastic from reaching the ocean.
Right.
But that means it's still accumulating somewhere.
Exactly.
Just not where we initially expected.
It highlights the importance of understanding the entire pathway of plastic pollution from its source to where it ultimately ends up.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
And it leads to, I think, a question that's probably on everyone's mind. If these microplastics are accumulating in these freshwater environments,
Right.
and we know they're ending up in the ocean,
Yeah.
what does that mean for human health?
Yeah.
We rely on these water sources.
Right. And the truth is,
Yeah.
we're exposed to microplastics all the time, whether we realize it or not.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
We ingest them through our food and water, and we even inhale them from the air.
And the long-term health effects.
They're still largely unknown.
That's the scary part.
Yeah, and it's an area where more research is urgently needed.
So there's still a lot we don't know.
Yeah,
But this study is definitely raising some important questions
for sure.
and highlighting the need for action.
Definitely.
But before we get into potential solutions,
Yeah.
let's take a closer look at the types of research
Okay.
being done to better understand this complex issue.
That's a great idea. There are some fascinating avenues of research
Oh, yeah.
that are helping to shed light on this whole problem of microplastic pollution.
Okay.
For example, some scientists are developing more sophisticated methods for detecting and monitoring microplastics in the environment.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
If we can't accurately track these particles,
Yeah.
it's tough to understand the problem and develop effective strategies to address it.
Exactly. Others are investigating the breakdown of microplastics in different environments.
Oh, yeah.
We need to know more about how factors like temperature, sunlight, and microbial activity influence the degradation process.
Right.
Because as these particles break down, they can become even smaller
Oh, gosh.
and potentially even more difficult to remove.
It's kind of unsettling to think about that those tiny particles could have different effects than the larger pieces.
Absolutely.
It seems like we need to understand the full life cycle of these microplastics in order to develop truly effective solutions.
You're absolutely right, and that's why this research is so important. It's helping us to piece together the puzzle and gain a more comprehensive understanding of this really complex issue.
So we've got researchers working on better ways to detect and track microplastics. We've got others studying how they break down.
Yeah.
And of course, there's ongoing research into the potential health effects.
Right.
It's great to know that so many brilliant minds are dedicated to tackling this challenge.
It is.
But let's shift gears for a moment and talk about what we can do on a more personal level.
I think that's a really important point to emphasize.
Yeah.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the scale of this problem.
Yeah.
But it's crucial to remember that individual actions do matter.
Okay.
Even small changes in our daily habits can add up to make a significant difference.
So what are some practical steps that our listeners can take to reduce their contribution to plastic pollution?
Well, one of the most impactful things we can all do is reduce our reliance on single-use plastics.
Yeah, I'm definitely guilty of that.
Yeah.
It's so easy to just grab a plastic water bottle or use a disposable coffee cup on the go.
Yeah.
But I'm starting to realize that those little choices have big consequences.
They absolutely do. And the good news is that making those swaps is often easier than we think.
Okay.
Invest in a reusable water bottle and keep it filled and handy.
Okay.
Bring your own reusable bags to the grocery store.
Right.
Choose restaurants that offer dine-in or use sustainable packaging for takeout. And consider carrying a reusable coffee cup for your daily caffeine fix.
Those are all great suggestions.
Yeah.
And honestly, a lot of those alternatives are not only eco-friendly, but also more stylish and convenient in the long run.
Exactly.
Like you're upgrading your everyday essentials while also reducing your environmental impact.
It's about finding those win-win solutions that make sustainable living feel more effortless and enjoyable.
Absolutely.
And it's not just about swapping out single-use plastics. We can also be more mindful about the products we buy and the packaging they come in.
Right.
Choose items with minimal packaging or packaging made from recycled materials whenever possible.
Got it.
And support companies that are actively working to reduce their plastic footprint.
It's about voting with our wallets, right?
Absolutely.
Supporting businesses that align with our values.
Yes.
And encouraging a shift towards more sustainable practices across industries.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of those choices.
Right.
When enough consumers demand more sustainable options, companies take notice and start to make changes.
It's empowering to know that we have that kind of influence.
It is.
So we've talked about reducing our reliance on single-use plastics, being more conscious consumers, and supporting eco-friendly businesses.
Right.
What about when it comes to actually disposing of plastic waste?
Yeah, absolutely.
Any advice there?
Proper disposal is crucial.
Okay.
Always make sure to recycle plastic items whenever possible. Check with your local recycling program to understand what types of plastics are accepted.
Okay.
And a small but important tip.
Okay.
Be sure to rinse out containers before tossing them in the recycling bin.
Yeah, I've heard that even a little bit of food residue can contaminate a whole batch of recyclables.
It can.
So rinsing is key.
It is.
What about plastics that aren't recyclable?
Unfortunately, not all plastics are created equal when it comes to recycling.
Right.
For those items, make sure to dispose of them properly in the trash.
Okay.
And if you see plastic litter, don't hesitate to pick it up and dispose of it responsibly.
Yeah.
Even those small acts can make a difference.
It's about taking ownership. Right.
It is.
Not just turning a blind eye, but being part of the solution.
Exactly.
Even in those seemingly small ways.
Yeah.
And beyond our individual actions.
Wow.
What about advocating for systemic change?
Yeah.
What can we do to push for broader policy changes
Yeah.
that address this problem at a larger scale?
That's a great question. We can all be advocates for change by supporting policies that promote plastic reduction, such as bans on single-use plastics,
Right.
extended producer responsibility programs, and investments in plastic-free alternatives.
So contacting our elected officials.
Yes.
Supporting organizations that are pushing for those kinds of changes.
Exactly.
Making our voices heard.
Yeah.
It's about taking those individual actions and amplifying them through collective action.
Absolutely. And remember, this isn't just about protecting the environment.
Yeah.
It's about safeguarding our own health and well-being.
Right.
Microplastics are a pervasive problem,
Yeah.
but we have the power to turn the tide.
Okay.
It's a message of empowerment, not despair.
That's a powerful message.
Yeah.
We can make a difference,
We can.
both through individual choices and collective action.
Absolutely.
But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Okay.
I'm curious, from your perspective as an expert in this field, what are some of the most exciting or innovative developments on the horizon when it comes to tackling microplastic pollution?
There are some incredibly promising innovations emerging.
Like what?
One area I'm particularly excited about is the development of bioremediation techniques.
Bioremediation.
Yeah.
What exactly does that involve?
Essentially, it involves using microorganisms like bacteria or fungi
Okay.
to break down plastic polymers.
So like they eat the plastic.
Think of it as harnessing nature's own cleanup crew.
Wow, that sounds like something straight out of science fiction.
It kind of is.
Are scientists actually able to identify and cultivate microorganisms that can do that?
They are. And
Wow.
it's a rapidly evolving field.
Okay.
Scientists are identifying and cultivating microorganisms that have a natural ability to degrade plastic. They're also working on ways to enhance those abilities through genetic engineering
Oh, wow.
or by creating optimal conditions for those microorganisms to thrive.
That's incredible. Yeah. So it's like we're enlisting these tiny but mighty allies in the fight against plastic pollution.
Exactly.
Cool.
And there are other cutting-edge approaches being explored as well.
Oh, really?
For example, researchers are developing nanomaterials that can target and remove microplastics from water.
Wow.
These nanomaterials can be designed to bind to specific types of plastic, making them incredibly effective at removing even tiny particles.
It's like a microscopic cleanup crew, specifically designed to tackle microplastic pollution.
You could say that.
Wow.
And the potential applications are vast.
Yeah.
These nanomaterials could be used in water treatment plants,
Okay.
in industrial settings, or even deployed in the environment to remediate contaminated areas.
Mind-blowing to think about the possibilities.
Yeah.
But I also wonder, with all these technological advancements, is there a risk that we become overly reliant on technology to solve the problem
Yeah.
and forget about the importance of reducing our plastic consumption in the first place?
That's a valid concern.
Yeah.
It's crucial that we don't view technology as a silver bullet.
Right.
We can't simply innovate our way out of this problem.
We can't just keep producing and consuming plastic at the same rate
Exactly.
and expect technology to magically clean up the mess.
Right. Ultimately, the most effective solutions will involve a combination of technological advancements,
Yeah.
policy changes, and individual behavioral shifts.
Right.
We need a multi-pronged approach that addresses the problem at every level.
So it's about finding that balance between harnessing innovation
Yeah.
while also recognizing the power of individual and collective action.
Precisely. We need to empower both scientists and citizens to work together to create a more sustainable future. And this is where things get really interesting.
Let's hold that thought for a moment. We'll dive deeper into those exciting possibilities and what they mean for the future right after this short break. Welcome back, everyone. Before the break, we were teasing some of those exciting new approaches to tackling this microplastic pollution.
Yes, I was just about to share some insights into how scientists are working to remediate this problem.
Oh, fantastic. So I think a lot of our listeners are probably wondering, what's being done to actually clean up the mess we've created.
Right. Well, as I mentioned before, bioremediation is showing real promise.
Yeah.
Harnessing the power of microorganisms to break down plastic polymers is a fascinating area of research.
Yeah.
Imagine tiny bacteria essentially eating plastic.
That sounds almost too good to be true. Are there any, like, real-world applications of this technology yet?
Yeah, there are a few pilot projects underway.
Okay.
For example, some researchers are testing the effectiveness of using bacteria to break down plastic waste in landfills.
Okay.
Others are exploring the potential of using fungi to remediate contaminated soil.
It's incredible to think about the potential of this approach.
Yeah.
If we could figure out how to scale it up,
Right.
it could be a game changer in terms of cleaning up existing plastic pollution.
For sure.
But what about preventing plastic from entering the environment in the first place?
Right. That's where material innovation comes into play.
Okay.
Scientists are working on developing new types of plastics that are biodegradable or compostable. Imagine a world where plastic packaging simply breaks down naturally in the environment, leaving no harmful residues behind.
That would be amazing.
Mm.
Are there any, like, promising alternatives to traditional plastics that are already available?
There are a few exciting developments.
Okay.
For instance, some companies are now producing packaging materials made from plant-based sources like cornstarch or seaweed.
Oh, wow.
These bioplastics can often be composted at home or in industrial composting facilities.
So instead of lingering in landfills for centuries, these materials can actually return to the earth as nutrients.
Exactly.
That's a much more sustainable cycle.
It is.
Are there any other innovative solutions on the horizon?
Another area that holds great potential is advanced filtration systems.
Oh, okay.
Researchers are developing new types of filters that can capture microplastics from wastewater treatment plants
Okay.
and even directly from the environment.
That sounds incredibly promising.
Yeah.
How do these filters actually work?
Well, some of these systems use membranes with incredibly small pores that can trap microplastic particles.
Okay.
Others utilize magnetic particles that bind to the plastics, allowing them to be easily removed.
It's like having a microscopic sieve that can filter out those tiny pieces of plastic that would otherwise escape into the environment.
Exactly.
But I imagine developing these technologies and implementing them on a large scale must be quite challenging.
It's definitely a complex undertaking.
Yeah.
But the good news is that there's a growing awareness of the problem.
Uh-huh.
And with that comes increased investment and research efforts. There's a real sense of urgency to find solutions.
Yeah, it's encouraging to know that so many people are working on this.
It is.
But technology alone can't solve the problem.
Right.
It seems like there needs to be a shift in our mindset as well.
You're absolutely right. We need to move away from our throwaway culture and embrace a more circular economy where products are designed for reuse and recycling, and that requires a collective effort from individuals, businesses, and policymakers.
So it's not just about developing new technologies, it's also about changing our behaviors and systems.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like education and awareness play a crucial role in driving that change.
Absolutely. We need to educate ourselves about the problem of plastic pollution, understand the impacts it has on the environment and our health, and make informed choices in our daily lives.
And I think conversations like this one are a great way to start that process of education and awareness.
For sure.
But it's also important to move beyond just talking about the problem.
Yeah.
What are some tangible things that people can do to get involved and make a difference?
There are so many ways to get involved.
Okay.
For starters, support organizations that are working to address plastic pollution. There are many nonprofits doing amazing work in research, advocacy, and cleanup efforts.
So donating to those organizations, volunteering our time, or simply spreading the word about their work
Exactly.
can all make a difference.
And don't underestimate the power of your voice.
Right.
Talk to your friends and family about this issue. Share information on social media. Contact your elected officials and advocate for policies that support plastic reduction and responsible waste management.
So it's about using our voices and our actions to create a ripple effect.
Yes.
And it's about recognizing that every little bit counts.
That's the key takeaway here. Every choice we make, every action we take, has the potential to contribute to a more sustainable future. We have the power to shape the world we want to live in.
That's a really inspiring message, and I think it's a perfect segue to the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
Where we'll delve into some specific actions that individuals can take to reduce their plastic footprint and make a difference in this fight.
I'm looking forward to sharing some practical tips and strategies that our listeners can implement in their everyday lives.
All right, so we've talked about the problem and some really amazing solutions on the horizon.
Yeah.
But I'm ready for those practical tips.
Right.
What can our listeners do in their daily lives to make a difference?
Well, the good news is that there are so many simple yet effective actions we can all take.
Okay.
It's about making conscious choices and incorporating more sustainable habits into our routines.
So where should we start?
One of the most fundamental things is reducing our reliance on single-use plastics.
Oh, yeah, right. We touched on this earlier, but it's worth repeating.
Yeah.
Those plastic water bottles, grocery bags, takeout containers, coffee cups.
Yeah, they really add up.
I know. I'm so guilty of that.
Right.
It's just so easy to reach for those conveniences.
It is.
But what are some practical swaps that we can make?
It starts with being prepared.
Okay.
Keep a reusable water bottle filled and handy so you're not tempted to buy a disposable one.
Right.
Stash a few reusable bags in your car or purse.
Yeah.
For those impromptu grocery runs. If you're ordering takeout, see if you can choose a restaurant that uses more sustainable packaging.
Okay.
Or opt for dine-in when possible.
Right.
And if you're a coffee lover, invest in a reusable coffee cup and make it part of your daily routine.
It's amazing how those small changes can make a big difference when we do them consistently.
It really does.
But what about beyond those everyday essentials?
Yeah.
What are some other areas where we can reduce our plastic consumption?
Absolutely. Think about your personal care products.
Okay.
Many shampoos, conditioners, body washes, even toothpastes come in plastic packaging.
Yeah, that's true.
Look for alternatives that come in bars or refillable containers.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I hadn't really thought about those items before.
Yeah.
What about when it comes to grocery shopping?
Right.
Any tips for navigating those plastic-laden aisles?
Choose loose produce whenever possible.
Okay.
Instead of those prepackaged fruits and vegetables. Bring your own reusable containers for bulk items like nuts, grains, and snacks. And opt for products that come in glass or cardboard packaging instead of plastic.
So it's about being a more mindful shopper.
Exactly.
Taking a moment to consider the packaging before we toss something in our cart.
It's about making those conscious choices and voting with our dollars.
Right.
When we support companies that prioritize sustainability,
we
send a powerful message to the market.
And speaking of sending messages, what about advocating for change at a broader level?
Right.
How can we make our voices heard on this issue?
There are several ways to do that.
Okay.
Stay informed about local and national policies related to plastic production, waste management, and recycling.
Okay.
Contact your elected officials and let them know that this is an issue you care about.
Yeah.
Support organizations that are working to advocate for stronger environmental regulations.
So it's about turning our concern into action, both in our personal lives and in the political sphere.
Yeah.
And I imagine that spreading awareness among our friends and family can also make a difference.
Talk to your loved ones about the problem of plastic pollution.
Right.
Share information on social media. Encourage your community to adopt more sustainable practices.
So it's about using our voices to create a ripple effect.
Exactly.
Inspiring others to make changes as well.
We can all be part of the solution.
Yeah.
And the more people who join the movement, the more momentum we create.
Right.
It's about shifting our mindset from feeling overwhelmed by the problem to feeling empowered to make a difference.
That's a really powerful message. And I love that it's not about perfection.
No.
It's about progress.
It is.
It's about taking those small steps day by day and knowing that those actions, when multiplied across millions of people, can truly make a difference.
Well said. And remember, every piece of plastic we refuse, reduce, reuse, or recycle is a victory for the planet.
So let's all commit to making those choices, to being more mindful consumers, and to advocating for a more sustainable future.
It's a journey we can take together.
Yeah.
And with each step we take, we move closer to a world where plastic pollution is a thing of the past.
Well, on that hopeful note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of microplastics in freshwater.
Yeah.
I hope this conversation has left you feeling informed, inspired, and empowered to take action.
Me too.
And remember, dear listeners, keep those deep dives going.
Yes.
There's a whole world of knowledge out there waiting to be explored.
Absolutely.
Until next time.